Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of Mish Mayhem.
Mish Mayhem.
The podcast where we take the schoolyard conversation of, hey, which one of these fictional characters would win in a fight? And we talk about it on a podcast.
That's what this is.
My gosh, he's right.
Or am I lying?
Well, then this would be something different.
I mean, it depends what the subject of that's what this was. Because, although to you it sounded like I was referring to the podcast, I could in fact be referring to the free train tickets that are in my hand. Moving on. Who are we? Who are you?
I'm Chris.
Who am I? I'm Matt. I'm Wade. I'm Matt Wade. And I'm officially a seaman. I have a book to prove it. I actually do have a book to prove it. It's like an ID card, but it's like better than an ID card.
Because it's got more than one page.
I mean, no, it doesn't. It only has two pages. I suppose it does have more than one page. It only has 2 pages. But
it's not a book if it doesn't have more than one page.
Yeah. The whole purpose of this book is literally to identify me if they find a body floating in the sea, because it has things like distinguishing marks on it. I remember when we were doing the forms for it, and Jenny, who was another colleague who started at the same time, was like, "What's that for?" And I'm like, "Well, the whole purpose of this is if they find your body floating in the sea, they can identify you." And she was like, "That's really morbid," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's also entirely true." That's why they have it. That's why your height is there, and other things that aren't measured on or written on you don't have your height on a passport, do you?
No.
Or your eye color.
We have a photo of you that will have your eye color.
Yes, it does, but it doesn't have it specifically stated or written down, because you could, I don't know, you could do
contacts.
Yeah. Are you allowed to? That's an interesting question. Are you allowed to wear coloured contacts in your passport?
I imagine you're probably not, but I don't know. I imagine some people do. Some naughty people.
How on earth would they know?
I don't know. Well, that is why I imagine some people do.
Oh.
I don't know. They might have some way of being able to tell.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, if they were fiery red or rainbow, they'd probably be going, "Yep, I don't think that's real." This person has excellent fake irises. That's the coloured bit of your eye.
It is.
Do you know what the white bit's called?
No.
It's called sclera. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but it's like SCLAREA or something like that. Sclera.
And the black bit is the student.
Yes, it is. The black bit is the student. Got to take good care of your students, otherwise they die in battle. That's a different kind of student.
So what are we doing today?
Well, it's episode 23. Last episode we had 2 brand new competitors making their way into the competition.
We did.
And therefore, by default, one would assume that one of them won. And one of them did.
It was the one that didn't have a burnt face.
It was the one that didn't have a burnt face. Who knew that having a burnt face would limit your ability to fight, not crime?
Maybe that was the problem, is that he wasn't fighting crime.
Maybe that was the problem. He's pretty good at fighting crime, he kicks it and it walks away. But it wasn't actually crime, it was just a box with the word crime written on it. Anyway, we had a victor, and that was Lucy from Elfin Lied, and this is going to be another Ryu situation, so fuck it, I'm going to call it Elfin Laid. It's
lead.
Yeah, it's absolutely lead, but Elfin Laid. Just to annoy everyone equally as much, apart from the one person who's like, "I call it Elfin Laid," and to you I say, "No."
I reject you as a person.
I don't reject them as a person. I just reject their opinion.
No.
No. Cease to be. Boop. But
You're
anyway,
fired from life.
You're fired from my family. So anyway, we have a victor coming through, and therefore we have a new competitor coming in. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce our characters, reigning champion first, as with tradition, and we're going to go through some stuff like their combat styles, their personalities, any weapons they have and skills, and what their favorite Xbox game is, and how often they brush their hair, whether they use conditioner or not. And then we're gonna roll the not patented, but the named Die of Death.
The Die of Death.
The Die of Death to see where they're gonna have their little
skirmish.
Skirmish. What a good word.
Yeah. That's the last thing to quickly tangent about before we start properly. Is you're going to go sit in a boat in the sea for 4 weeks.
Yeah, I may also stand.
That's true. But yeah, Mr. Wade here has got a nice new job, which will every now and again require him to go offshore for a while.
I mean, in theory, when I'm fully done, it will be literally half the time.
Yeah.
But I'll have half the time off as well. So,
So we're going to... Yeah. We're all happy for him that he's got a new job that he seems to, at least for the first sort of month or so, be enjoying.
I mean, I've been there since October.
Really? Has it been 3 months already?
Yeah.
Blimey. But, where he's going to go off and do offshore work and stuff, we will try our best not to let it affect the podcast, but if we do have to miss, a few releases or delay them down the line, that will probably be why.
Hopefully that won't happen, though, because... as stated, when I'm back, I have all the free time in the world, so it's literally just a matter of finding time when you're free in those times to record 2-3 episodes ahead of time. Happy days. Job's good.
So it should be fine, but, just in case it isn't, you have been warned. That will be our thing for this year.
Yeah. Well, and ideally for many years.
Yeah. Okay, but without further ado, let's reintroduce Lucy. So,
hello, Lucy.
Why, hello there.
But that's not how she sounds at all.
No.
Not in the dub or the sub.
No, it's true. Once upon a time, there was a small girl named Cade. But due to a horrific and traumatic childhood, her mind split into 2 different personalities. There is New, who is a very kind and quite childlike, naive character who doesn't understand social construct and has immense sexual curiosity, which leads to many awkward and very Japanese scenes in the
Hooray for Japan!
Which, as you were sort of saying about, in your silly questions, do they, brush their hair and stuff? I can think of at least 1 scene, maybe 2 or 3, where she has it done for her by the other characters.
So the answer is no. She doesn't brush her hair.
She gets looked after because... the new personality, at least at the beginning of the series, is very, like I say, childlike in mentality and needs looking after. It's like a big grown-up sexy child. So, make of that what you will. Which is quite the antithesis to the Lucy personality, which is very strong and capable and independent and powerful, and also a bit psychotic.
Hooray!
Yeah, it's like Lucy has all of the dark thoughts and bad feelings, and is very much egged on by the voice in their DNA which tells them to kill the humans.
Dark thoughts.
Yes, dark thoughts indeed.
For reference, just in case you did think she literally got egged, she doesn't literally get egged. Egged on as in do something.
It was a turn of phrase.
Yeah, I know, I'm just being silly.
But you might be thinking, man, if it's an anime, this person's probably just a teenage girl, and you would be right in that thought. So how does a teenage girl become psychotic and kill people? And that is because she's technically not quite human.
Backstory.
Yeah, she's actually a Diclonius, which is sort of an evolutionary offshoot from the human race. And she basically looks like a human, except she's got horns.
Just like the Jedi look like humans, or some of them do.
Yes, but yeah. She looks like human, except she's got 2 small horns on her head. And she also has vectors, which are these big, invisible arms that are primarily used as how the Diclonius reproduce. If ever they were to touch a human male with these vectors, that male would, when they had children, would have a Diclonius child instead of a human one. because it mutates the DNA in their sperm.
Hooray! My favorite thing about my sperm is it hasn't been mutated by diaclonosis.
But although evolutionary speaking, that is the primary use of their vectors, that isn't really how they're used in the anime, because the other thing that they can do is tear through people very easily, because where they look like big invisible arms, they can grab hold of people and hold them in place, usually without those people knowing it's going to happen due to the invisible nature of them. And then they vibrate at such high frequency that they can just cut through flesh and bone, which, leads to some quite gory deaths in the show.
Hooray!
Yay. There's nothing people like more than gratuitous violence. The amount of vectors and the length of the vectors varies between the Diclonisis, depending on how powerful they are. So Lucy, her vectors ranged in number, on whether or not it's from the manga or the anime.
Mhm.
In the manga, she had about 14 of them, and in the anime, she only had 4. I guess they did less in the anime because it's, to simplify things, but they had to animate it rather than just do still pictures. But they were about 2 meters long.
Hooray!
No, so that's pretty long for arms, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Clonitis have the ability that they can push themselves to either create more vectors or make them longer and such if they really need to. But doing this will put extreme strain on their body and cause them to actually start melting. This was seen at the end of the anime, where Lucy was using 20 vectors that had enough range to cover the world and enough power to sink islands or potentially just tear the world apart. But doing this did cause her to melt.
Hooray!
Yay! And although traditionally Diclonisis have very good healing powers, if they melt themselves, they cannot heal from that. That is just what they have done.
It's the rules at Dioclysis school.
Yeah. No healing, melting. But it's worth noting that they can only use their vectors or their healing abilities whilst their horns are intact. So if anything happens to break their horns, until their horns sort of naturally heal, they won't be able to use their special abilities and will essentially just become humans. So if throughout this fight, obviously their opponent won't know to break their horns, but if it does happen, she will essentially just become a standard teenage girl.
Well, I've seen some pretty aggressive standard teenage girls.
Well, yeah. She'll certainly be feisty because that's her personality, but, she probably won't win in a fight against whatever character you have brought in, unless your character is also somewhat of a standard human.
Who knows? We both know.
We do both know. But that's basically an overview of Lucy.
Hooray! My clue was that they featured in some famous books. Some very famous books. And that they were on essentially I implied that they were on a scale between grey or black and white.
Yes.
What's the most famous book you can think of other than the Bible?
I know what you want me to say, which only just makes me tempted just to say Harry Potter.
Oh, I was going to say Mein Kampf, but...
Oh, yeah, Mein Kampf's a pretty famous book, actually.
Pretty famous book. Anne Frank's diaries.
Yeah.
This person doesn't hail from any of those.
Yeah, not just the Bible, other religious texts. What about the Torah? That's pretty famous.
Oh, yeah, or the Quran. Is it the Quran?
Alice in Wonderland, that's a pretty famous book.
I only use the Bible because it is the best-selling book of all time ever.
Yeah, it's also the most shoplifted book of all time ever.
That's amazing and hilarious at the same time. Because
it's because you don't know that you're not supposed to steal until you've read it.
If your parents have raised you well, you should know that you're not supposed to steal, regardless of whether you were brought up in a Christian upbringing or not. I don't think there's a single religion or belief that is stealing, just fucking do it, yo. And he came down, his commandments written upon his stone tablet. Stealing, just fucking do it, yo. The other commandments were lost to history as the tablets were stolen from him.
So what famous book are you trying to get to?
I was referencing The Lord of the Rings. I don't actually know what the books are called because there's like 6 books that are actually 3 books or something.
Yeah, it's the Fellowship of the Ring Part 1 and 2, Twin Towers Part 1 and 2, and Return of the King Part 1 and 2, isn't it?
Don't they have like different names as well?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Oh, it just says structurally the novel is divided into 6 books. Anyway, I don't care about the books. I mean, I do. I mean, I don't. I mean, I do, but for this purpose, not for my purposes. It's Gandalf.
It is Gandalf.
He's a dude. Is he actually a dude?
He's a wizard.
I don't think he really is a dude. Well, yeah, he is a wizard. So there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of deep lore on Gandalf, most of which I'm going to skim through because it's irrelevant to this fight to the death in some ways. Equally, there was a surprisingly sparse amount of data on act abilities and stuff, so I'm just going to have to go with what I've seen and what I've read. And if you disagree with that, well, tough. We don't hire researchers. We don't have Mish Mayhem research interns. Maybe we should. Send in your CV to Mishmash Mayhem research intern at probably arealjob.com. And we can pay you in Kleenex tissues and lip balm because that's what I can see in front of me. It's a bit dirty, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah. Well, it depends if they've been used already or not.
No, I mean, the ones I have in front of me, the Kleenex tissues have not, and the lip balm is mid-use. But we would send fresh ones. But anyway, so Gandalf. Am I talking Gandalf the Grey or am I talking Gandalf the White? We are going to go for Gandalf the White because although Gandalf the Grey technically kind of inhabits the world for a lot longer than Gandalf the White does, they are one and the same person. It's when he gets his magic level up abilities after defeating a Balrog. So that's who we're bringing in. So, Gandalf. Gandalf is not a man, nor is he... Well, I mean, he is a wizard, but not the wizards, a race or a class. He is, in fact, a Maiar. Right, I don't know how I'm pronouncing that. But it's Maiar. And they're like angel people who came down to Earth. He's like a human embodiment of an angel. On Middle Earth.
All right.
Definitely not Earth. He's also one of the Istari, which is just wizards. So he was one of 5 wizards sent down to Middle Earth. You know who 2 of the other wizards are, probably, without me having to tell you who they are.
Saruman and the brown one from The Hobbit, whose name I forget. That's it.
Yes, exactly.
But then isn't there always there's a green one as well,
Yeah.
isn't there, in the extended universe?
There's like I think there were 2 blue ones. I don't really care. But he was sent down as Gandalf the Grey. Their colours, well, effectively like a reference to their power, or how much power. It's not reference to how powerful they actually are, but how much power they're allowed to untap in Middle Earth, if that makes sense. So, it's an interesting point that when Gandalf went from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White, he didn't get more powerful, he just got a bigger allowance of his power available to him. So he was sent down many moons ago, many moons before Lord of the Rings happened, and all of the wizards who were sent down were essentially given like a task to complete, an order. And Gandalf, and most of them were to do with getting rid of Sauron because he's a bit of a bad guy. By a bit of a bad guy, I mean he's the main bad guy. And his was effectively to help and aid people who are trying to kill / destroy Sauron. So interestingly, his task wasn't itself to defeat Sauron, but to aid people defeat Sauron. Like, I don't know the full background of Lord of the Rings and all that jazz, but I kind of think it as like, these people have made this world, and then they're like, well, Sauron's going and fucking it up. But we should let them deal with this, but feel free to help them, but don't do it for them. That's what I kind of imagine where his role was. So, during the main part of Lord of the Rings, he becomes effectively the leader of the Fellowship of the Ring, who are trying to get rid of the One True Ring, which is like one of Sauron's evil rings, in order to destroy him. And during this venture, he ends up battling a Balrog of Morgoth. If you don't know what the hell that means, I didn't either. Morgoth is the main evil, which is essentially the source of evil across the whole of Middle Earth, and is another Maya, but in a Balrog body rather than that is their body.
Yeah,
they are a Balrog.
Yeah, I'm sure someone who knows much more about Lord of the Rings has told me that before, that a Balrog is essentially an anti-wizard.
Yeah, that would do. So if you've ever seen the films and you were wondering how on earth they fell down a massive hole and ended up on top of a mountain, I always thought that it was a very weird, confusing kind of like giant ass fall where they fell into a different world, almost like a different plane of level. And on that plane of level, he then climbed a mountain. Turns out it's just a mountain that the Mines of Moria are in. It's just kind of hard to show that in the short montage they did. They fell down together. They had a battle most of the way down. They ended up, navigating loads of caves and stuff, and then climbing up the mountain that they exited. And it was upon this mountain that, after fighting solidly for 2 days, bearing in mind they'd also been fighting through the caves and stuff, I think the whole fight takes place over a week, like a solid week. Gandalf manages to slay the Balrog of Morgoth, whose spirit leaves its body. But in doing so, he himself, is overcome by exhaustion, probably, and his spirit also leaves his body. But as he was the only one of the wizards who was actually like doing their task properly, he was sent back. And this time he was sent back not as Gandalf the Grey, but as Gandalf the White, because the angel beings are like, you can untap more of your power now for reasons.
Yay.
So, what are these powers?
Good question.
It's a really good question. So we all know that he is a magic user, as a wizard. The kind of magic that he's been shown to use in the films, for example, are like kind of forceful pushes. I don't know if you remember the fight between him and Saruman, but it is...
Yeah, they just push each other around.
It's literally them tripping each other up for 2 minutes.
It is one of the
worst wizard duels ever.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's one of the best bad fight scenes I've ever seen.
Yeah, but I think the point of that fight is that there's no point them trying any other magic, because it just isn't really works. I think they just go for like a raw kind of strength thing. I don't really know. Anyway, so he's got the power to do that. He's also seen, illuminating light out of his wizard staff, which probably has a name, but I don't know what it is. I'm sorry to everyone who loves Lord of the Rings more than I do. And in fact, that was able to repel Nazgul riders and Nazguls, which is pretty decent feat, because they're pretty nasty creatures. And he is just like, some light, bro. And they're like, ah. He, according to my sources, he's also quite well versed, and most of his magic is to do with light and fire. Apparently this is because he's been given like a ring of fire or something. I don't know. Like, how much do you know?
Not a lot.
Exactly. Neither do I. So he apparently he also has most of his magic is like fire related and heat and that stuff. But magic isn't his only source of power. He's also a pretty badass fighter. I don't know if you remember the films, but he manages to fight off hordes of orcs and things, just by himself. And he's an old man angel thing.
Does he not have his staff in one hand and a sword in the other?
Yes, he does. Because why wouldn't you do that? So you're absolutely right. He has his main magic.
It's not at all like staffs are a two-handed weapon or anything.
Yeah, or that a staff would essentially just kind of knock people over and not do much else. But not his staff. It's magical. But yeah, as you say, he holds his magic wizard staff in his left hand, and he holds Glamdriel.
No.
Oh, Glamdring. That's close enough. In his right hand, and he uses he uses those together in combat to fell many enemies. He's also incredibly knowledgeable. I think he's supposed to be like the wisest of all the wizard people, because he just goes around collecting like knowledge and stuff on things. Another, because I'm bad at ordering things. Do you remember that dude who was like all mind poisoned by, I think, Sour Man, and the king of what's it called, Helm's Deep?
I don't know.
No, there was like an elderly man, and he looked like he was dying, and he wasn't really doing anything. Yeah, and then Gandalf was just like, yeah, fuck your possession, I'm gonna unfuck your possession.
Yes, I do remember that, because it was Wormtongue was like messing with him.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the progenitor of the magic was not Wormtongue, but I believe Wormtongue was then acting as a proxy for controlling the mind-controlled man.
Yeah, I believe so. It was Saruman had messed his mind up, and then Wormtongue was very much controlling him with that spell.
Yeah, I believe so. But anyway, he managed to get rid of that because he's badass. And he also he has an Entfriend tree army. I say he has an Entfriend tree army. What I mean is he makes friends with Ents, and their army are on his side. Anyway, that might be the worst description of Gandalf ever. I don't think he combs his hair because it's really mottled, but he has a fucking epic beard.
He does have the beard that all other wizards aspire to.
Yes, it does. I do have this like little quote here from a site, and it just says, and the paragraph is titled "The Magic of Gandalf," and it says, Tolkien at no point defines what the limits of Gandalf's magic were. As a Maya, he had many natural abilities that would seem magical to mortal races, but he also had a great store of knowledge of more mechanical magic, worked through spells and incantations, blah blah blah. It is clear that he had far greater power, especially as his return as Gandalf the White, than he ever displayed in Middle-earth. His magical powers seem particularly associated with fire, blah blah blah. So as described, although I've gone through some powers, he probably didn't ever bother using his full Mish of powers.
Maybe he just never needed to.
Yeah, probably not. Anyway, that is good old friend Gandalf.
Wow. So we have our combatants. There's only one thing to do now.
Right. See you next week.
Tiddly. No, of course. It isn't adjourn. It is to roll the die of death. And today's battle is taking place inside a cave.
Inside a cave?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a bear there, right?
If you want.
I mean, do you not think of bears when you hear the word cave?
No, not intrinsically. Bats more than bears.
Oh, what about a bear bat?
Isn't that just a bat with no clothes? Isn't that all bears? Bats. Bears.
I killed a bear for no reason the other day in The Witcher.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was.
That was mean.
I mean, the thing is, it was there, and I decided that I could probably use its hide for good. I have yet to use its hide. Honestly, I've been trying to run around trying to find someone to repair my silver sword for ages. I say ages. I mean, I did it for like half an hour because I kept running into monsters and dying and reloading the save. And it's pretty slow on the Switch because the Witcher is big and the Switch is not big.
No.
Right, we've got a cave. It's inside a cave. How big is this cave?
Yes.
Is it well lit?
It's a big cave. Well, yeah, we'll say it's a big cave. It's not that well lit.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any cave-like obstacles?
There's probably like rocks on there.
Well, what I meant was, is like there an underground river, or is it just there's an underground river? Let's go. I mean, caves. Like, have you ever been in a giant cave with an underground river and all the lights are out?
No.
It's terrifying because all you can hear is the rush of water and you don't know where it is.
Okay. Luckily for Gandalf, he can create light on his staff, right?
He absolutely can. He might be the only source of light, which may or may not prove advantageous.
Yeah, I was going to say that probably wouldn't end well for him.
Well, I mean, at least he'll be able to see at the same time. He'll be able to direct it. He'll be able to use it like a torch, like a blinding torch, rather than like a sconce torch.
Yeah, that only works well though if Lucy is in front of him.
Yeah, that's true. But Anyway.
If he just turns on his torch and she's behind him, then she'll just tear him apart and he'll die.
Well, yeah, but I mean, why would you start with a... You'd start with a wide beam, and then when you need to know where you need to look, then you can switch it into a torch beam. Anyway, we're getting into things that are not yet relevant, but they will be very relevant. Anything else in the cave? You know, how kind of... So you said it's a big cave. There's a rapids. I'm assuming the exit is far, far away, and it's cold, because caves are cold.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, then. Well, I don't think there's anything else to add. Should they begin?
Yes.
So tradition dictates that the challenger approaches.
Yeah, Lucy's already in a cave.
What the fuck's she doing in a cave?
I don't know why she'd be in a cave. Maybe she was killing Gollum.
Yeah. So, I mean, Gandalf is a wizard, right? But underground rivers don't really go outside. I wanted him to kind of ride a boat down the river into the cave, but I don't think that's very realistic. I think what's more realistic is him just walking into the entrance with his... I don't know if he'd even have the light on. Would he need it? I mean, to some degree.
Yeah, I don't imagine he can see much without it.
Yeah, no, he'd need it. So you'd have it like... But on the plus side, if he's coming down into a cave, then he knows the things in front of him, so he can have it on a torchy-esque setting.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like in your face. Cool. Anyway, yeah, so old Gandalf is walking down the cave entrance with his staff held in his left hand and Glamdring in his right, and he's looking pretty white, except you can't see him because it's dark in this cave, apart from the only illumination coming from his magic staff as probably a fairly broad and unintense, you know, like, I want to illuminate as much of this cave as possible kind of way.
Yeah.
He's walking down and you can hear the of the river. That might be a bit too metally for a river. Do your best impression of a river. Do it now.
Splash.
I'm not sure whose was worse. Excellent.
Mine was like the wind, but with a splash.
And then, you know, as he's walking down, he enters this big cavern, and illuminated in front of him, he just, you know, sees, rather than seeing Lucy, because she's far away, he just sees a great big shadow of a Lucy on the wall.
Do you think he would be trying to be sneaky?
Well, I mean, how sneaky can you be coming into a cave with a light on?
Well, that's it. But I was more meaning as well as like the light. Like, would she hear him walking around?
I would say she probably wouldn't be able to hear him because of the river. Like, she's going to be near the river.
Okay.
It's going to be quite loud and echoey in there. That's going to be a lot of the noise component. It's going to be quite volumetric. That's not a real word, but fuck it, it is.
Okay. I just wondered if that was something that might come up in the future if he turns his light off.
Ah, I see.
But at the moment, she would see his light. And you know what? Lucy's quite overly confident. I don't even think she'd be that worried about hiding. She'd probably quite happily just walk out to meet him.
All right, so this is a big cave. How big are we talking? Because last week I think we discussed that her arms had a range of about 4 meters, was it?
2 meters.
Even less. They're definitely like way further than 2 meters apart.
Yes. She would probably want to get to the point where, you know, she's in about like a bit less than 2 meters.
She's going to have to get really close. And at this, you know, Gandalf's got a lot of time to see her walking up towards him.
Yeah, I know. I think she'd want to ideally get to them being less than 2 meters apart. Yeah. Sort of far enough away that he can't hit her with a sword or staff, but close enough that, you know, the vectors can comfortably reach him. So maybe you're thinking like maybe like 1 3/4 meters away, so she's got like 1/4 meter to play with.
I mean, would she be able to tell that he has a staff and a sword? I mean, they're going to be quite far away. Like, you imagine, you remember playing like, you know, Flash Bulldog and Fields, right, with scouts. Do you remember doing that?
Yeah.
Like, if if our scout leader Steve was like holding a sword and a staff, would you have been able to identify that at the distance?
Probably. I do certainly know he'd had something. But I don't know. But by the time she gets into the range she wants to, she'd be able to know. She would know before he was within range to use them.
Yes, that's true enough.
So I don't know how would Gandalf react then to her just coming out to me and...
Well, I assume that he's gonna, at some point, they're gonna come into a distance where he's going to realise that this is Lucy who he needs to kill.
Yes.
and it's probably going to be. I don't really know. I haven't been in a cave in a long time, but it's going to be somewhere between 10 and 50 meters. So let's call it 20 meters because it's dark, except the light. So let's pretend it's 20 meters away-ish. He notices that this is the person he needs to kill. Would be my guess. And he just sees her walking towards him calmly. And
what is the range on his magic?
well, who fucking knows? Light, very far. It's light. I mean, most of his other magic, like, is shown to be quite close range. You know, if you imagine the fight with Sour Man, they're in a small room that's no bigger than, you know, like 5 meters across. And when he's dispelling the thing on what's his nugget, again, he's probably about 10 meters away when he starts, but he ends up really close. So I think it's probably fair to say it's the close end of mid-range.
Okay.
As a person who doesn't know.
So about 5-6 meters?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so I imagine upon noticing that this is who he needs, he's just going to like fully intensify his light and go for like a blinding kind of array. Like a warding light. You know how he defends himself from the Nazgul. Just like full power. Much more concentrated light beam into Lucy's face from a distance.
My face. So yeah, Lucy would be like initially blinded, but eventually like your eyes sort of adjust to it, don't you? And she'd sort of maybe a bit slower, but start.
I mean, you adjust to bright lights. Do you adjust to staring directly at the sun?
I suppose less so, yeah. But you know, I feel like she'd try and sort of shield her eyes a bit and still walk a bit more forward, but maybe a bit more apprehensively.
I mean, unfortunately her vectors are translucent, so she can't really block light with them.
I don't know actually. I mean, she can block like explosions with them and stuff.
But they're see-through. Glass can stop explosions.
Okay.
All right, so I'm imagining she'll really like, you know, hand over the eyebrows, you know, just a couple of gaps in her fingers for her to kind of glint through, and just walk. She's kind of like still walking forward, but she can only really see like figures. Well, I say figures, you know, shadowy figure of Gandalf the White, who was dressed in white on a white background of his white light in front of her. It's gonna be a difficult observation. I think he's got to wait for her to get a little bit closer, but not like super close. And then he's got to probably go for some kind of forcey kind of throw. I'm imagining, you know, although the effect of his spell will be limited, you know, like if you get hit by a car and the car stops, you go further than where the car stopped. You know what I mean? So I'm imagining he's then going to go for some kind of blow.
So if he's going to do that, do you think he's going to try and throw her in the underground rover?
I think that seems like his best game plan, because as far as he's concerned, you know, she looks just like a human to him.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are squishy and stuff. He could fling a human against a cave wall, but if he just walks in from the entrance, and she's walking from a river side, you know, he's a very smart man. He knows that if you end up in an underground cave river, they flow very fast and they go very deep, and if you go down that, you're probably not coming back up. Especially if you're a human. I mean, in fact, definitely if you're a human, you're fucked. If you're something else, then that is another issue, but that's not what he has to concern himself with, because as far as he's concerned, Lucy is.
Okay. So do you think with this like first spell, he's going to, like, because if they can hear exactly where the river is because it's loud and stuff,
yes,
will this first spell just throw her straight in?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Okay.
For many reasons. I don't think he would be able to push her that far. I think he'd be able to push her back to probably like somewhat near where she started, but also the fact that she is going to be able to react to flying through the air and is going to be able to stop herself. But so yeah, for those two reasons, I don't think it's going to get her in there.
Now, don't get me wrong, like you say, Gandalf is a very smart guy. He's probably smarter than Lucy is.
Yes.
But Lucy is also not stupid necessarily.
Yes.
So I think she wouldn't necessarily be thinking, right, I'm going to go and... I mean, although her end goal would be to get in close, because that's how she's going to kill him. She wouldn't necessarily be trying to do that again. She'd be more like, well, I need to get up to him without him knowing.
Yeah,
otherwise
she's not going
to
to like slowly walk up to him again.
So I think initially she's gonna maybe use her vectors and stuff and start just trying to like throw some rocks at him.
All right, so essentially she has been butted back.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
But in this cave, I feel like she could pull some like stalactites off the ceiling, or pick up some reasonably sized rocks that are around.
Yeah.
And just sort of start trying to throw some projectiles at him.
Cool. So yeah, Gandalf, gives her a blast. She goes like sailing back and uses. Well, does she land? Typically, or does she use her vectors to stop her? It's an interesting question because Gandalf's going to get some information.
She would probably be a bit in between the two. She would fall down and stuff, but she would probably catch herself more than she lets on.
Yeah.
So she would fall down and get a bit hurt and stuff, but not as much hurt as you would expect for someone being knocked off their feet by some magical wind.
Yeah. Sure. Cool. So she lands, and she's still like bathed in this light, and she's like, well, I thought a slow frontal approach isn't going to work. So grabs some nearby debris and stuff and starts launching it at old Gandalf.
Yeah. And then I think depending on how effective this is what would determine her next move.
Okay.
Because if it all sort of like hits him, and like then she'd probably try and run in and try and get close again.
Yeah.
If he is able to deflect it or whatever, she would use the time he's doing that as a distraction to potentially like hide and try and find a alternative cave route to get up close to him in the darkness.
Yeah, I mean, I think she would just go for the distraction immediately anyway, because she's ended up quite far back, and it's going to be quite hard to run that distance quickly. Although she has these vectors, she is still, in terms of running, she is effectively a human. She's no Usain Bolt.
No, but I was thinking if they do actually start like connecting with him and like actually hitting him, she can keep throwing them while she's running.
All right, okay.
But obviously, if he is able to deflect them easy enough, then she'll be like, right, I need to go and hide and
so
find a better route up.
All right, so she, skids across the floor, and as far as Gandalf can tell, she's skidded across the floor. But then, like, some rocks start getting hurled from nearby. She won't be able to reach them on the ceiling because unless she exerts herself to stretch her vectors, because the ceiling is going to be more than 2 meters away.
Okay.
But certainly there are loads of rocks on the floor, so she can launch. Well, how many vectors did you say she had? 4?
4 if you're going from the anime.
All right. So is she going for like rapid fire or all 4 at once?
Yeah. No, rapid fire.
So you get like rocks. Gandalf, he's got a light source. He can see these incoming, and he's gonna, if he thinks that he can parry. By parry, I mean, like step out the way of one of them, he will. Or he'll just start in front, hand his shield, prevent himself from being hit by the rocks, and the rocks will kind of like explode lightly on his bubbly goodness.
Yeah. I mean, that is what I figured would happen. Then Lucy would try and quickly, without him noticing, duck out into some alternative dark path and sort of try and head up towards him that way.
Yeah, so I guess that she throws the first 4 and is kind of shifting her body weight, ready to spring one way, sees that they get easily deflected, picks up another 4, starts throwing them again, and while she's throwing them, starts trying to scamper one of the directions into a darker area of the cave. Because as we've discussed, Gandalf has already tried to, put his light onto beam mode. Beam mode. I don't know if beam mode is a legitimate canonical name, but it is now.
Well, we know what you mean. Torch powers activate.
Torch powers. Let's go, torch powers.
But yeah, so he looks up from blocking these projectiles, and then Lucy's gone. What's he going to do to try and find her?
Well, he's got 2 choices. He either, because I don't think he'd be able to keep track of where she's going. I don't think that would be his priority, because he probably wouldn't expect them to. Well, he's dealing with unexpected rocks and he's defending, so I don't think he'd be able to keep track of her going out. So the question is whether he goes for total darkness or total light.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting choice.
Would he go for initially total darkness, knowing that then he could wait a minute or 2 and then do total light and probably blind her again and catch her off guard?
Yeah. That's a good point, because if he goes for total light, he's got to scan the area to find her.
Yeah.
And she'll already know where he is.
Roughly, yeah.
Whereas if he goes for total darkness, he can move in the same way that, she's moving.
Mm-hmm.
And if he gets himself against a wall or somewhere where he eliminates effectively half the vision range and then goes, he can scan her a bit quicker. And, neither is that, he's probably at more of an advantage in terms of just finding her than she is.
Yes.
Because she won't know where he is. So I think you're right. That's probably a better plan. And he's a smart guy. If we can think of it, he can think of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we have the luxury of not being in a dark, Gandalf-lit cave with a river rushing through in the middle of a fight to the death. But, he's Gandalf. He can think on his feet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think, seeing that he's gone, the light just dissipates.
It all goes dark. Lucy is heading to roughly where she last saw him. It's not going to be exact because she's got to take an alternative path around some other rocks or something.
Yeah.
So, but she's going to go for roughly where he is. And then he's going to, I assume, move in the darkness, knowing that the sound of the river will mask his movement.
Interestingly, it's a good note, given that his plan is probably still to get, the use of this river. I think he would head to, skirt in a direction more towards an edge and closer to the river because it will help mask his sounds. Granted, his sounds are also going to be, his hearing is also going to be worse, but he's not going to be relying on hearing as his main identification sense.
So essentially, the two of them are just going to swap places.
Almost swap places, but I wouldn't have thought like super swap places. Do you know what I mean? How am I imagining this against how you might be imagining this? So, do you want to open paint? This is the kind of high-level quality fight breakdowns that people can't visualize but come to listen to. All right, you've got paint open. All right, this is my fantastic drawing.
I look forward to seeing this.
That's pretty good. I've drawn Gandalf in grey because white doesn't show up on white.
Okay. Right. Okay.
You like the little question marks?
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So Lucy is now basically where Gandalf started, but Gandalf's gone over to the right.
Yes, or an arbitrary side, but we're just choosing the right because arbitrary side.
Okay. So now Gandalf's there. Is he going to turn the light back on and see what happens?
Yeah, I think he would wait until he's got his back against the wall because, don't get me wrong, although not having somewhere to retreat is bad, not knowing where the enemy is worse. And assuming that they are a human, he knows that they can't see. So if they've gone somewhere towards the middle, either they're going to be right next to each other and, that's unfortunate, but he's got a sword and a thing, or she's going to be in the middle and chances are she won't be looking the right way straight away.
She'll be looking to where he was.
Yeah. So she might not be, but if she's standing roughly in the middle because she's gone to where he was, the chances of her looking exactly in his direction, or even the right half of the cave are like 1 and 2. So I think that's his best Gandalf plan. Hashtag Gandalf plan.
Yes. So he'll turn the light back on. As he does, I feel like Lucy would go to attack where he was because that's where she's expecting him to be.
Yeah.
So the vectors would smash into the ground, it would be like an explosion of dirt everywhere. There'd be like a big hole in the floor where he was standing.
Yeah.
Which easily would have killed him. And then he'd be like, haha, she's over there. He might not be able to see her, she'll probably be just out of sight, but he'll know where she is roughly.
Yeah, so he does a swaving illumination, like a thump. You imagine like a thump of light. Mm-hmm. And as this happens, 4 vectors smash into the floor and near the floor, and dust rises in a dust cloud. And so he can see a dust cloud from where he was not that long ago.
Yeah.
And he's like, Now he's probably suspicious that this person isn't a regular human.
Yes.
But he wouldn't have any idea what they are.
Well, he would have seen them throw rocks from as far as he can see telekinetically.
Yeah, that's true. He probably imagines they're a magician like him.
Mm.
That's a fair point. He probably imagines they're a magician of some kind, like another wizard. So I'm wondering if Gandalf's thinking, turn off the light again and just keep walking around doing illuminations and seeing if it tires them out. Because Gandalf's got all bloody day. He's been in a fight for a week before, and he didn't bat an eyelid until he died at the end. Came back to life.
I think that realistically, Lucy's not going to get tired either. Well, at least not of attacking, because she can use her vectors all day.
Yeah.
It would get to the point of, in a few hours' time, she might get hungry or thirsty or whatever.
Well, would she get frustrated though?
Possibly. Well, yeah, that's the other thing. She might just get really annoyed and just start smashing everything. Maybe try and make a cave in or something.
All right, okay. So, Gandalf's just seen this destructive power, and he's like, I don't want to get hit by that.
Obviously.
Knowing what he's capable of, he knows what he's capable of. I don't think he wants to get into a close quarters fight. He probably wants to, as I say, try and wear them out, which we know isn't going to work, but he doesn't. Or get them into the river somehow. So I think he might do as we just said. He'll get the light off, use the cover of the river to mask his movements, shuffle around a bit, and then just keep flashing light and hoping that he can bait Lucy into attacking positions where he isn't, near where he was, and seeing if he can tire her, even though it isn't going to tire her, but it might frustrate her.
Yeah, I think this will be it. I think that will work. Lucy will keep going to where as close to where she thinks he can be, but I think she'll eventually stop waiting for the light to come back on to launch attacks. She'll just start smashing stuff in the dark as well, hoping to hit him.
All right, so let's say that Gandalf moves around a bit, flashes a light, another dust of smoke roughly where he was, and he does this like another two times, and then Lucy starts getting like, oh, sod this, and just he just hears smashes very faintly because a raging river nearby, but he starts hearing smashes, and when he like flumps the light up, there's already a dust cloud rather than he flumps the light up and a dust cloud appears. Like there's already he sees that she's starting to smash stuff around.
But like you say, even with the sound of the river, he'll be able to hear her just sort of smashing rocks apart and like breaking the floor and things.
And if she's breaking the floor and she's smashing, she's probably going to be using the limit, like her 2-meter limit, isn't she? In an attempt to reach him.
Potentially. I don't think she'd be exerting herself to the point she's like doing damage to herself.
No, that's what I mean though. But my point was, like, let's pretend you have a sword, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to flail around trying to reach someone. You're not going to flail out with your arm tucked into your chest. You're going to flail out with your arm stretched as far as it can go.
Probably, yeah.
So if she's creating dust clouds and trying to hit as many places at once as possible.
There's essentially a 2-meter diameter around her of sort of death.
Right, so I reckon he's not going to be able to get a perfect gauge on this because...
No. Sorry, it would be a 2-meter radius, wouldn't it? 4-meter diameter around her.
But I reckon he's going to be able to get a decent gauge...
Of where she is.
Not necessarily where she is, but just of... A, that's roughly her range.
Mm-hmm.
And B, there's 4.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know what kind of magic it is, but he can probably, discern after, a couple of, this kind of like interesting defensive light blast disco dance in the cave.
MC Gandalf, Cave Rave.
Cave Rave, Gandalf, Cave Rave. Destroy the ring. Spin those discs, DJ. DJ Sound's just like the one ring to
rule them all.
Yes. Yes. Anyway, he'd be able to discern, as far as he's concerned, that she has fairly short range magic that can probably do about 4 spots at once.
Mm-hmm.
He won't be able to tell her arms. It doesn't really matter for him at the minute. So then what's Gandalf's plan? That is interesting.
Well, I guess he'd probably like use this information to try and ascertain her location. Yeah. And like you say, he'd put himself... He's trying to bait her towards the river anyway. But he'd try and get it so it's like him, then her, then the river. So he can use a push spell to throw her into the river.
Yeah.
Because that was always his game.
Yes, I think that is still his game. Because he doesn't want to get close.
No. And, if he's sort of figured out she's got an approximately 2-meter range, he's got a 5-meter approximate range, so he doesn't need to get within her death circle.
You know what he might do? It's loud, so this might not work, but I think he might try it. After like a flash, as he walks away, he doesn't need Glamdring because he's thinking, if I'm in close range, it's going to be bad for me anyway. You know, I'm not gonna win this with a sword. So maybe he lobs Glamdring at the floor or a wall nearby him, but you know, towards the river, to try and make a sound.
Yeah.
As if he'd clanged it on it clumsily while moving.
Sure.
But obviously he hasn't.
Lucy would then destroy wherever that sword was.
Just smashes apart a sword into two, which makes a very satisfying kind of like metally splunge sound.
Lucy will break wherever that wall or rock or whatever made the noise. And as she does, Gandalf will be like, woof, and launch her into the river.
Yeah, another like...
I feel like she probably would get a bit wet and stuff, but we're using her vectors, she'd probably be able to pull herself back out the river.
I'm imagining that she gets blown into the river, tries to use her vectors to like grab on to the sides and stuff. The current's probably strong and starts taking her down, but she then starts to strain herself a bit, not to the full extent, obviously, to keep herself afloat and drag herself out of this river.
Yes.
So I don't know whether she'd need more vectors.
She could probably do it with the 4. The problem is they are really strong.
Yeah. Oh, but she can lengthen them, though.
Yeah.
And maybe give a 5th just for good measure.
The point is, I think with only a fairly small amount of discomfort, she would be able to save herself.
Yeah. And I think, so after he's blown her in, he hears the kind of splash, and he'll probably cast like almost like a lighthouse looking down the river just to make sure.
Yeah, he would be smart enough to be prepared for her to survive it.
Yes, you know, just checking. I don't know how long he'd check for. Most wizards probably aren't going to be able to, you know, most standard wizards are not going to be able to survive that for long, although they can cast protective bubbles and stuff. I don't think any of them have, for lack of a better word, gripping resistance kind of spells.
Yeah, which is what the one thing she does have.
Yes.
I guess the real thing is will being in this sort of intense water and the fact she's been thrown in, will it do any damage to her horns?
I mean, I wouldn't have thought so.
Okay, in which case she'll be fine.
Because, like, if she'd have gone under, like, properly and gone, you know, a bit down the river, she might have smashed her horn on a rock. But I would have thought, she's been hit by this before. She is going to sail into the air first, and then the river, and then get dragged under and stuff, that she would have enough time to probably not stop her momentum completely before she travels a distance, but be able to prevent herself from going at a dangerous velocity and taking severe impacts. Like, I think she'll still get bumped a bit before she stops, but I don't think it's the kind of impact that is going to be, you know, if she was a human and she just went plop, that, you know, those are dangerous impacts that break skulls.
Yeah.
But as, you know, she's managing, she knows to stop herself as she's going through the air anyway. And she's quite used to high reaction speed combats anyway, you know, against bullets and things. So yeah. I think she'd be able to slow herself down to the point where she wouldn't take any serious damage.
Yeah. The thing I wonder is if Gandalf can see her because he's got the light on.
I don't think he'd be able to see her. You know, so like he can illuminate water, yeah, the surface of the water, but I don't think his light is going to be able to penetrate that water and illuminate it like you're at a bloody tropical beach. Like, you know, it's a dark cave and stuff. I just think it's going to illuminate the surface and allow him to see if she's on the surface or managing to swim out or something.
But as she came up to sort of resurface, would he see her, do you think?
Now, that depends on how long Lucy is willing to hold herself underwater.
Probably not too long. She'd probably try and get out as quick as she could.
In which case, yes, I think Gandalf would see her come out.
Cool. Then I feel like there's going to be one of two outcomes here. This will be the make or break moment.
Yeah. She's probably been swept down 5 meters or so.
Yeah.
By the currents before she managed to stop herself.
So I think either she'll get out quick enough that Gandalf is not prepared and she'll be able to tear him limb from limb, essentially. Or, as she goes to get out, he'll see and be able to like use his magic to keep pushing her underwater, even if she is able to hold herself in place. But eventually she'll drown, even if she's not being swept away.
Yeah.
I think like one of those two things will happen at this point.
I think, given the distance, she might try and spring at him.
Yeah.
But he'll be like, Gandalf powers, woof, drop her back into the plop.
Yeah.
But as you say, Gandalf will probably then, get a bit closer and keep trying to vroom, vroom, vroom her down.
Yeah, all he has to do is just keep pushing down. It doesn't matter if she can grab the side of the riverbank to pull herself back up if she's being magically pushed down. She'll hold herself in spot until she drowns.
But when's Lucy gonna go, I'm gonna do a bit of self-melting vectors?
Well, that's true, I suppose. If she literally couldn't move because he was holding her down, she could then, start creating extra vectors.
Because all she needs to do is lengthen her vectors to allow her body to go further downriver.
Yeah.
Right? Because Gandalf's not going to be able to see fully into the river. And then extra vectors to push herself up and then push herself off the back wall and push herself at Gandalf really fast.
Yeah, or even just surface far enough away that, if he's got a light she can still see, she can just extend the vectors to that light.
Yeah, that's true. She doesn't even need to get out of the river. She can use her vectors to drag Gandalf into the river.
Or she could surface, get out the river further down, out of his sight potentially.
Yeah, and then just extend vectors and just drag Gandalf into the river.
She doesn't even need to drag him in. If the vectors touch him, she'll just cut through him like he's nothing.
I feel like she might be tempted to drag him under the river while, lay herself further down the river and then vector grab and drag him in. And then as he's flinging, as he skiddles past under the river and then just flunk.
Yeah. Yeah, you think she'd want to bring him into sight to kill him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she's going to be in a stressful situation. And if she's got the ability to exert herself, even if it's at the detriment of her body a bit, the extreme that you've given, world coverage, 20 vectors, melts her. We don't need that extreme to get her out of this situation.
No.
But she's going to need to use it to get out of this situation. So I think she would. So
yeah, she'd just make some extra long, make her vectors, stretch them to go further and use that to kill Gandalf.
Yeah, so he gets, again, he's caught by a whip around the foot. Bloody Gandalf, that's his Achilles heel. He gets surprised, dragged into the cold river, at which point he's whoop, having a hard time, probably trying to flash on a light and work out what he's going to do. And as he sails is a bad word, as he torrents, good word, as he torrents past the somewhat suspended Lucy, some of her free and other regenerated vectors just
shred him,
do a Darth Maul on him as he floats on down.
Then the river turns red in a really Hollywood moment.
Yes, but you wouldn't be able to see it because it's too dark.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, Gandalf did so well.
He did. I thought he might have that.
I think he would have if Lucy didn't have the get out of jail almost free card. But there you go. That is what Lucy has. That is the ability she brings into fight, and that is the abilities that she uses in a fight.
Yes.
A fight to the death. So,
and she wouldn't have even been exerting herself for more than maybe a minute, so she probably wouldn't have even done much detriment to herself.
No, yeah, exactly. I think, it would be some recoup, have a spa session.
Yeah.
But nothing a lazy weekend and some Dr. Pepper can't fix.
Well, yeah. Right, so what we need now is a clue for your next character, now that Lucy's got a mission and mash.
This character is another fan suggestion.
Ooh.
They persist in they exist in one of the most popular anime franchises of all time.
Okay.
And they are not naturally born unto this world. That's my clue.
Okay.
Do you know who it is?
No.
Oh, cool. Lovely beans. Well, I mean, that was a pretty cool fight, that, I thought.
Yeah.
I think that had some cool things in it. I think the cave definitely helped. If it had been a well-lit place or a close quarters thing, I think Gandalf probably wouldn't have lasted anywhere near as long. And it certainly helped him formulate some kind of plan. But ultimately, the power of being she's the Queen Dionculus or something?
Yeah.
Ultimately, the powers associated with that in moments of stress were enough to overcome his wizardsness. But it's okay because he probably just his spirit left his body and he probably went back up to the angels and they were like, oh, you can come back as Gandalf the Brilliant White.
The eggshell.
Gandalf the Eggshell. Gandalf the Cream.
The beige.
Oh, that just sounds awful. What's the best white colour? Yeah, pure brilliant white. Gandalf the pure brilliant white.
Yeah, sounds
The
good.
natural white. The whisper white. The hot bristle quarter.
Yeah, that one.
Amazing. Oh dear.
Anyway, if you guys want to get in contact and tell us what colour you think Gandalf would go, you can do so on the Twitter at podcastmmm, or you can email us podcastmmm@gmail.com. Similarly, if you want to suggest new characters or new places for fights to take place, then you can do so at the same places. It's always nice when people get involved, and it makes us have to think of less, which is also good.
Hooray! Or more, because we need to look up characters that we have no idea about.
Yeah, but that's always kind of fun.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's that. Please feel free to tell other people about our podcast. Podcasts tend to get popular by word of mouth. So, come on, you too. Let's try and get more fans. Yeah, we have been part of TTSS Productions, and you can find them over at taylorswordssponge.com, where there are podcasts and blogs and the such you can look at and enjoy. And any final thoughts for today, Wade?
Final thoughts. I'm about to watch Tom Vassel's ranking of the Ticket to Ride variations. I'm not sure I've played all of them, but I would definitely put the UK edition up there.
Okay.
As one of the best ones. I think it's cracking.
Fair enough. I mean, it is a good board game.
Fantastic board game.
Okay, on that note, bye.
Catch you all late. This is that awkward bit of silence at the end before Craig leaves.
Yeah, fuck you, Craig.
Fuck you, Craig.